South Korea does, Germany does, the United States does.
We're much stronger together if we have partners like Taiwan and Japan, South Korea, and others working with us in Europe to have a unified agenda.
It's a different story. These robots from Japan and Korea and countries that we work with, they have a long history of supporting our manufacturing industries and other industries. I don't think they present the same risk.
지금 미국 의회에서는 매우 중요한 논의가 오가고 있습니다. 인공지능의 몸이 될 로봇 산업의 주도권을 누가 잡느냐를 두고 벌이는 경쟁인데요. 전 세계가 앞다투어 기술을 개발하는 상황에서 정작 미국은 국가 차원의 구체적인 계획조차 없다는 사실이 드러났습니다. 반면 반도체와 배터리, 그리고 탄탄한 자동화 능력을 갖춘 대한민국은 이미 전략을 갖추고 앞서 나가고 있죠. 미국이 왜 우리 대한민국과의 협력을 이토록 필요로 하는지 그 현장을 보시죠.
Robotics have catalyzed the American economy for over a century. Articulated robots with joints like human arms have long served as essential components for handling, welding, and assembly in industrial manufacturing. Robotics is critical to industries ranging from automotive manufacturing to space exploration and healthcare. The potential for robots to assist and enhance human capabilities is vast, and a new phase of advancement is underway. For many years, humanoid robots were seen as the stuff of science fiction, but with the rapid development of artificial intelligence, so-called physical AI, the integration of AI into robotic systems, may be the key to unlocking new ways to deploy robotics across the United States. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy's AI Action Plan notes the importance of this intersection between AI and robotics. Physical AI could unleash a robotics renaissance, and America must remain at the forefront. The United States must act decisively. The Chinese Communist Party has invested billions in its robotics industry and has pursued an aggressive strategy to dominate the global market. As technologies like physical AI advance, it is more important than ever for the United States to adopt a national robotics strategy to support manufacturing, bolster our economy, and assist the American worker. That is why earlier this year, I introduced the National Commission on Robotics Act. This bipartisan legislation would establish a national commission tasked with evaluating the United States' competitiveness in robotics. The commission, comprised of experts from academia, industry, and the public sector, would provide policy recommendations to strengthen American leadership in robotics, helping Congress develop forward-looking policies that keep America competitive in this new era of innovation.
미국이 급하게 위원회를 만들려는 배경에는 중국의 거센 추격이 자리 잡고 있습니다. 특히 로봇 제작에 꼭 필요한 부품들을 해외에 너무 많이 의존하고 있다는 점이 큰 걱정거리입니다.
Second, robotics is a domain of intense strategic competition. The Chinese Communist Party made robotics a national priority, committing over $100 billion to technologies, including robotics, and supporting roughly 140 firms focused on humanoid robots alone. American companies are already driving innovation in robotics. Firms across the country are developing robots for everything from last-mile delivery to elder care and disaster response. Standard bots, industrial robots, Tesla's Optimus humanoid, Boston Dynamics Atlas platform, and a growing ecosystem of startups show that American industry recognizes the opportunity which is at hand. The question for Congress is whether our federal research and policy infrastructure is keeping pace with that private sector ambition. But we should also be clear-eyed about where our supply chains stand. Too many of the components that go into American robots, such as sensors and actuators and chips, are sourced from abroad, including from adversarial nations. If we want to build a strong domestic robotics industry, we need to understand where those vulnerabilities are and to take steps to address them. The Trump administration's convening of robotics companies last month was a very good start. I look forward to hearing what came out of those discussions. Furthermore, agencies within this committee's jurisdiction are already doing important work. The administration's AI Action Plan noted the link between AI and robotics and the American manufacturing. The National Institute of Standards and Technology researches collaborative robots, autonomous vehicles, and robotic perception and manipulation. In fact, as robots move from controlled factory settings into less predictable environments, homes, hospitals, and public spaces, the need for safety standards will become even more critical. Getting the standards right early will help American companies lead globally rather than play catch-up in foreign regulatory frameworks, making NIST's work all that much more important.
데이터를 얼마나 확보했는지 그리고 누가 먼저 표준을 만드느냐가 승패를 가르게 됩니다. 미국도 이제야 제조업을 다시 살리겠다고 나서고 있지만 생각보다 상황이 쉽지 않습니다.
That country has launched data sharing initiatives, data factories where humans train robots by performing tasks, and efforts to standardize training data sets and pipelines for robotics. We can and still must lead in the field of robotics, but to achieve that goal, we need a concerted national effort to support innovation across the full robotics system. I think this hearing is an important part of assessing the challenges and opportunities in robotics. And I thank once again the chairman and ranking member for organizing this, and I know it's part of our effort to regain and keep our lead. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, thank you, Ranking Member Lofgren. That concludes our opening statements. We'll now move on to witness testimony. Our first witness is Mr. Evan Baird, co-founder, CEO, and chief engineer of Standard Bots, America's largest industrial robot manufacturer. Mr. Baird, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Obernolte, Ranking Member Stevens, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for having me today. My name is Evan Baird, and I'm co-founder, CEO, and chief engineer of Standard Bots, America's largest industrial robot manufacturer. At Standard Bots, we make robots accessible and affordable so that every American manufacturer can put robots to good use. Our AI-native robots require no code to program and take on tasks that legacy robots can't handle, allowing every worker to be a builder and operator of robots. We believe AI-native robots are the essential power tool of the 21st century, the tool that will grow American manufacturing and help every worker to be a force at work. Manufacturing is a formidable part of the economy, yes, but when you also count affiliated suppliers and services, the real footprint is even bigger, roughly a third of the U.S. economy and a third of American jobs. For every one manufacturing worker, another 5 are directly supported by manufacturing. But for 4 decades, America has shed manufacturing jobs and as a result hollowed out its middle class. We've gone from 20 million manufacturing workers in 1979 to only 13 million today. And that's why this isn't just a factory worker problem. When manufacturing weakens, wages fall and upward mobility narrows across whole regions, even among those who never set foot in a factory. A strong manufacturing base isn't just nostalgia, it's how millions and millions of people in this country build a good life. For our part, we've deployed industrial robots to hundreds of American companies in nearly every state, from generational small businesses in the heartland to some of the country's largest manufacturers in oil and gas, automotive, aerospace, and data centers. And what they all share is this, and the research supports this: manufacturing becomes more competitive when they put robots to work. And competitiveness is the key that unlocks company growth, job growth, and wage growth.
더욱 우려되는 부분은 이것이 경제 문제를 넘어 안보와 연결되어 있다는 점입니다. 적대적인 나라가 만든 시스템이 우리 생활 깊숙이 들어온다면 언제든 위험한 통로가 될 수 있기 때문이죠.
And the central point I want to leave the subcommittee with today is this. Robotics is becoming a foundational layer of economic power, manufacturing strength, and national security. It is therefore imperative that Congress take action to ensure the United States robotics industry can compete and win on the global playing field. We are entering an era of embodied AI or physical AI, where AI is the brain and robotics is the body. And today, America may still be winning the race to build the brains, but we are losing the race to build and deploy the bodies. You may have seen in the news this past weekend, there was a literal robotics race in Beijing this past weekend, where a Chinese humanoid finished a half marathon faster than the human world record. And that metaphor, it writes itself. We are in a robotics race with China, and right now they are moving with speed, scale, and national purpose. Today, only 8% of US manufacturing firms have incorporated robotics at all, and most of those robots were not made in America. Meanwhile, each year China is installing more industrial robots than the rest of the world combined, and now controls over 80% of the global humanoid robot market. These statistics are a national wake-up call. If we lead in software, but hardware is designed, built, and deployed by our adversaries, we have not won. We have merely created a more intelligent dependence. And today, the PRC is executing the same strategy in robotics that it used to crush the American commercial drone industry. And China's new five-year plan is a whole-of-nation push to lead in robotics and embodied AI through scaled manufacturing, adoption, and state-subsidized dumping. Backed by a $137 billion state venture fund, subsidized below-cost Chinese robots are flooding into the United States to win market share, distorting the playing field to drive American robot manufacturers out of business. And we cannot let this happen. And to be clear, this is not just an economic concern. It is a matter of national security. When adversary-linked physical AI systems are deployed in sensitive sites, they create openings for surveillance, persistent access, remote disruption, and even physical harm. PRC laws compel these companies to serve as instruments of state intelligence so that each Chinese robot in America is a potential Trojan horse. Further, these technologies are dual use. The People's Liberation Army is already moving to militarize robotics, including arming robot dogs, benefiting from the PRC's military-civil fusion strategy. So when we talk about robots made in America, we must focus on ensuring a level playing field, and that means industrial capacity, resilient supply chains, domestic deployment, and control over technologies that will shape economic power and defense capability. The window of opportunity for the U.S. to lead in robotics is open, but it is closing fast. And to lead, we must give American companies a fair shot, not force them to compete against the full weight of the Chinese state. We must pair carrots with sticks in policy actions, which we lay out in detail in AUVSI's recently released Partnership for Robotics Competitiveness.
정부가 중심이 되어 움직이는 체계적인 전략이 꼭 필요하다는 주장이 힘을 얻고 있습니다. 그런데 여기서 정말 놀라운 이야기가 나옵니다.
I think that if we could coordinate across all agencies of government, that would have tremendous value to helping the robotics industry compete globally. The U.S. has fallen behind by not having that, and as has been pointed out, the Chinese saw the future. When they developed their national strategy, they understood robotics was where this world was heading. And they put in place programs to become the leaders. We can do the same. We need this central organization and this commission to take a look at every part of government that can help and can benefit from a stronger robotics industry in the U.S. So I do think it's essential.
Well, thank you. Obviously, I agree with you, and we're going to keep pushing to try and get that bill across the finish line. Mr. Beard, you in your testimony called for a national robotics strategy. That's something I highlighted in my opening statement as well, so we're in furious agreement on that. It's really frustrating for me that the United States does not currently have a national robotics strategy. China does, Japan does, South Korea does, Germany does. The United States does not, and there's such an obvious linkage between a robotics strategy and our national economy and national security. So if we're all agreeing that we need to put together a strategy, can you talk a little bit about what that strategy should include and what it should prioritize?
Absolutely, and thank you for the bill that you've sponsored. We're strong supporters of that bill and your leadership.
미국 의원이 직접 인정했습니다. 중국, 일본, 독일, 그리고 우리 대한민국에는 로봇 전략이 있지만 정작 미국에는 없다는 점을 말이죠. 우리 한국인이 독보적인 실력으로 일궈낸 저력이 이제는 미국이 배워야 할 국가적 전략이 된 셈입니다.
Yeah, we see authoritarian rivals coordinating to undermine democracy, so we must work with other democratic allies to safeguard democracy. And working with countries that are aligned with our ethics and values is going to be important to winning. As many scholars have noted, U.S. competing against China alone is going to be far less effective than if we can compete with our democratic allies. As mentioned, China's far outpacing the U.S. It's currently outpacing the world, but we'll be much stronger together if we have partners like Taiwan and Japan, South Korea, and others working with us in Europe to have a unified agenda and a global strategy to compete against an authoritarian rival.
Yeah, and as Mr. Beard was talking about where he sources parts components, you think about partnerships like AUKUS, Australia, UK, US. I know you mentioned the nuclear submarine. I really do want to see the United States aggressively pursuing manufacturing co-development of innovations and strategy partnerships with allied nations.
혼자 힘만으로는 중국을 상대하기 어렵다는 사실을 미국도 깨달았습니다. 그래서 반도체와 자동화 기술에서 앞서 있는 우리 대한민국 같은 파트너가 꼭 필요하다고 말합니다. 함께 기술 혁신을 이루고 전략적으로 협력하자는 제안을 하는 모습을 보시죠.
Are we seeing this playbook applied to robotics yet? And how should the U.S. respond? Very briefly, start with Mr. Beard.
I believe that we are seeing that. I think we're seeing some companies even selling below their cost, is what we've seen. I think that we should take action to ban Chinese robots and probably give some notice, 6 to 12 months. But the supply chain and the robots, and I think we're still early enough in the adoption, and very few manufacturers are using Chinese robots, so there's time for folks to adopt to that with a little notice.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I'll just go right down the line there. Mr. Bernstein.
I think we may be seeing some of the issues that you mentioned. Whether or not banning Chinese robots is a good idea, I'm not sure. And one of the reasons I'm not sure is because of right now we do need those rare earth magnets here in the U.S. And I worry about if we start a war over robotics, that we could lose some of those components that are vital to our goals. We want to reshore manufacturing at scale. If we are dependent on those parts and they withhold them, then I think there could be an issue.
Okay. Mr. Robbins?
Yeah, we're a cross-domain association, so we've seen this movie play out in the drone industry. So for us, it's a slam dunk. You absolutely have to move away from adversarial supply chains. Otherwise, the China market creates a strategic dependency, and we ultimately lose that market here in the U.S., which is their goal. So yes, we have to ban Chinese robots.
Thank you. Dr. Helper?
I want to split the difference. I think one of the key things that this strategy could do is really understand where we have capabilities and where we, in the supply chain, and where we could develop them. And so then you could imagine setting some kind of aggressive yet feasible targets of these are going to be tariffs, gradually, more and more into the supply chain. That initially we would not ban rare earths from abroad or from China, but eventually we'd develop a capability and we would, or we would tariff them.
We need all the information we can possibly get to see if we can rectify this situation. American manufacturers tell us robots are too expensive, too complex, too difficult to integrate. Incentivizing them to buy robots and robot components from China. What is the federal government's role in bringing down those barriers? Is it research funding, tax incentives, or workforce training, or something else? And Mr. Beard.
I think it's a mix of all those things are needed. And I think most importantly, dramatic action and quick action. I think we have to train the next workforce. We don't have enough folks that know how to deploy robots right now in the United States. I think we need to incentivize the adoption of robots like China has. I think we need to, it's Chinese supply chains we've heard run at 4% margins for critical components like strain wave gearing, motors, motor controllers, encoders. These are the critical components in the robot supply chain that we need to have in the U.S. in additional rare earths. So I think that having capital available so that you can start a company that makes those components, because venture capital isn't there for a 4% margin business. We've already waited long enough where that's what it is in China.
그렇다고 중국산 부품을 당장 모두 끊어내기엔 넘어야 할 산이 많습니다. 핵심 광물과 주요 부품을 여전히 중국에 의존하고 있는 상황이기 때문입니다.
Other tools that also should be considered to help support this industry. We absolutely need to rely upon Ex-Im Bank and Department of Commerce and have a national strategy, but we also need to utilize tools that are available in the Department of War to support these technologies as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else?
At Standard Bots, we have designed almost all the parts that go in the robot, and we've had to do that because the U.S. supply chain just doesn't exist, and we want made in America robot arms. We're currently working on vertically integrating all the different parts of the manufacture of the robot, from casting metal, where we buy bars of metal locally and melt them down into the shape, to milling them and heat treating them and powder coating them. And so we've had, because the U.S. supply chain doesn't exist, we're having to take on even melting metal to make a made in America U.S. robot. So that's the current state of things.
You just add increasing the user base to give Mr. Beard economies of scale.
Thank you. I'll just finish up with my last question. Would an investigation into the national security risk posed by foreign robotics manufacturers be warranted?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other input?
I would say that we should look at some of the dual-use threats from our non-allies. But I think when we're looking at our allies, it's a different story. These robots from Japan and Korea and countries that we work with, they've been working in the United States for decades. They have a long history of supporting our manufacturing industries and other industries. I don't think they present the same risk.
I agree with that, ma'am. And I do think that, as I said earlier, we need to work with our allies. We also do need to also take a deeper look at the supply chain, the underlying supply chains as well, because some of our allies face some of the very same supply chain challenges and strategic dependencies on China that we face here in the United States.
다행히 미국은 대한민국과 일본의 로봇을 완전히 다른 신뢰의 대상으로 분류합니다. 우리 기술이 보여준 성능이 미국 제조 현장에서 이미 충분히 검증되었기 때문입니다. 오직 실력으로 얻어낸 당당한 대접입니다.
Just extending that into robots, that would be a logical first step. Any system that the U.S. has designated as a Chinese military company that's on the 1260H list should be banned from the U.S. Like that's if it's, you know, they're working already with the PLA, which is strategic adversary, that should be extended as well. Beyond that, there absolutely needs to be a strategy to drive a resurgence in American manufacturing in those the broader industrial stack. So rare earth magnets, sensors, components, LiDAR, all of the things that make up a robot, so that we can break the strategic chokehold that China has on the critical components and the pieces that make up the American robotic industry today that so many companies are reliant upon. That don't have the resources of Mr. Beard's company and to be able to go and vertically integrate. A lot of companies are still sourcing from China because it is so much cheaper, and that's where, in some cases, that's their only option. In order to break that dependency, we have to reindustrialize and build here in America and work with our partners and allies around the world.
And do you think those critical components can be obtained mostly in the United States, or do we have to truly go overseas and make those deals, make sure we secure that in international relations?
Yeah, it's both, and you know, we need a strategy for that. We want to bring some of it at home. We have to think left of boom. You know, in a wartime scenario, you know, the first place China is going to go is all those you know, those strategic dependencies. So we have to have some domestic capacity. There's no doubt about that. We learned that lesson, you know, in World War II with the arsenal of democracy. However, in the meantime, it's going to take time to build that capacity. Shovels in the ground, workforce, permitting, all the things that go into that. And in the meantime, we have to be working, you know, there's really good efforts undertaken right now by the Commerce Department, State Department, Pax Silicana, and others to build these relationships and build these supply lines with our allies.
위험한 의존 관계를 끊어내는 일이 이제 가장 중요한 숙제가 되었습니다. 미국은 우리 대한민국처럼 믿을 수 있는 파트너들과 손을 잡고 새로운 공급망을 구축하려 합니다. 압도적인 성능을 내는 것을 넘어 전 세계가 인정하는 대체 불가능한 기술력과 신뢰를 쌓아온 것. 이것이 바로 우리가 글로벌 시장에서 당당하게 주인공이 되는 진짜 비결이 아닐까 싶습니다. 탄탄한 자동화 역량으로 스스로의 가치를 증명해낸 우리 한국인의 저력이 앞으로의 로봇 시대에는 또 어떤 기적을 만들어낼까요? 여러분의 생각이 궁금합니다. 오늘 영상을 보며 시청자 여러분들은 어떤 생각이 드셨나요? 오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.